Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the SimNFL show. Real talk about fake sports. I am your host and commissioner. You can call me Pierce. This is our last episode before the upcoming 2026 SimNFL draft, which will be taking place over at SimSN. If you're unfamiliar, come check us out on the website and on Discord. We would love to have you. So real quick today, we're going to go over a couple of major trades that have happened since last episode. And then our feature today is a brand new final mock draft of the top 10 picks as they currently stand. Again, draft is just around the corner, so we'll be diving deep into that. So to kick things off, San Francisco found a trade partner for Rodney LaBelle in the New England Patriots. So LaBelle is going to them. San Francisco is getting a second and third round pick this year, and then a couple of picks next year in exchange for LaBelle and a sixth round pick. I was not expecting the Patriots to be buyers at this point, but they pick up a great asset, a great edge rusher in LaBelle. 83 overall, only 28 years old. So I think getting a guy of his talent, especially at a thin position, like a linebacker, without giving up a first, still a pretty big win. Meanwhile, San Francisco adding some picks to their draft selection this year and continuing their rebuild. LaBelle is under contract for 2 more years. Patriots are going to pay him $9 million in salary each of the next 2 years to keep him on, and then he'll have the choice of what to do with him as his age 30 season approaches. Meanwhile, Houston Texans were looking to get back into the first round. The Rams were looking to mostly move out of the 26 draft for cap reasons. The two found each other and were able to come to terms. So Houston is getting 15 overall, 44, and then 88 this year. So a first, second, and third in the current year. In exchange, they are moving their firsts in 2027 and 28 to the Rams, and a 2028 third as well. Rams building up future draft capital and saving, getting out of some cap trouble this year. Houston, meanwhile, stocking up picks for the current year. Again, building around that strong rushing offense. So they're going to back into the first round at 15 overall, and then building up their selection of late day 1 and then day 2 picks as well. Meanwhile, the Jets were also still very busy trading back into the top 10. So if you've been keeping track, the Jets had 5th overall based on their in-season performance. They traded that to the Bengals for 10 and 19, so 2 later firsts. 10 went to Dallas as part of the Jesse Knoll deal, and now they are moving back up from 19 to 9 thanks to the Cardinals. The Jets are also going up from 79 to 60 from the third to the bottom of the second, and getting a 6th in a couple years, and in exchange moving a second and third pick in 2 years in 2028. I think that's great value for them. So Jets going from 5 to 19 back up to 9, and then with Jesse Knoll and some other picks this year in it as well, and paying the late second and third for that. Arizona, meanwhile, they stated they feel confident in the guys they think they can get at 19, and then adding future picks for a rebuild as well. So both sides seem super happy about it, which is what we like to see. Jets now have 9th overall, which is reflected in the upcoming final mock draft of the top 10. And so, without further ado, we are going to jump right into it. Again, we are just a few days away from the draft, which starts Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And the biggest drama, of course, coming into that is looking at the quarterbacks. We've had 2 huge trades up for 2 and 3. And based on what those owners and GMs have very plainly said are going to be picks for quarterbacks. So we're going to look at how that top 3 is going to go. And of course, I don't have scouting data, but I have draft grades, I have the combine, and from those, I have put together what I think the top 10 picks are going to be. barring any future trades, because I can't predict those. Clearly, we can tell I can't predict that. But we're going to start at number 1 with Scott Romero. Has just done absolutely everything he has needed to do pre-draft to show that he is worthy of the top pick, that he can be someone's quarterback of the future. He was tops at the combine in accuracy, tied for first with Savage in the distance drill. So absolutely phenomenal. And I think the 49ers have a lot of former first-round picks on that roster, especially at offensive skill position. So I think Romero is going to have a lot to work with, and I think a pocket passer will work very well in that system. One place I'm not sure about a pocket passer working is in Tampa Bay, which is why I have them going with Kingery at number 2. They have a couple of very strong blockers who are excellent run and pass. But after that, it really falls off in terms of pass blocking, and I worry about having a pocket guy back there, what he might go through, what he might struggle with sacks and things like that. They also have their wide receiver 1 and 2 are red zone, and there's no overlay or overlap between pocket quarterbacks and red zone receivers, which is not a deal breaker. But ideally, you want someone who's going to fit your system, and I think Kingery does that with a little bit of more mobility as a balanced type. Has been excellent at Combine as well, really put his name up there, been flying up the draft charts. It's going out on a limb, but for my final mock, I am putting Kingery at number 2 with Tampa Bay, which means that Baltimore, with number 3 overall, is taking Brandon Savage out of Tennessee. Savage tied with Romero in the distance category, was tied for 3rd in the accuracy drill. We've all seen what he can do in his college career. Definitely a QB of the future candidate worthy of a top 5 pick. Baltimore looking to completely revamp its offense after moving on from David Chop. Have an excellent line who I think could protect Savage and give him the time he needs to really revitalize that offense. So at number 4, we have the Giants, who have held on to their number 4 pick and have said they are not going quarterback, which is great for them. They have the pick of absolutely anyone they want to take. And so my prediction is going to be defensive tackle Caleb Ryder out of Oklahoma State. I had him as a first-round talent last year when I thought he was going to declare early. He was, I think, a top 10 athlete in my CFB rankings. Just absolutely phenomenal player. And then he came back for his redshirt senior season, so he's going to be even better. I know there are players, not at defensive tackle, but at other positions that have had better combines. So maybe I'm going a bit too heavy on name recognition here or on my own rankings. But I just think Ryder's going to be phenomenal. And if you look at the odds, 5% of draft eligible players are going to boom or bust, which means half of those are going to bust. That's 2.5%. And 70% of that are going to bust once. So there's like a less than 1% chance of any individual player going double or triple bust, which I think is the only way that Ryder's attributes aren't just absolutely through the roof. Again, not based on my own scouting, just I have been anticipating him called as an early first rounder since a year ago, and I think with an extra season under his belt, he's going to be unstoppable. And that is a need for the Giants. So I have them going with him at number 4 overall. Also, he's a balanced type. He works in absolutely any system. So no matter what other pieces you put around him, he's going to thrive. And then filling out the top 5 of Cincinnati, I have them going with Tony Sherman of Tulsa. Cincinnati wheeling and dealing moved their top 2 receivers to the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's a huge need at the position. So I think only makes sense that they're going to go with the top wide receiver on the board. Again, there are some other candidates. So based on what they see in scouting, who knows if they would go for Sherman or maybe Bonifacio or Willie Parms. Both of those who really showed up at the combine as well. But I think wide receiver has to be in the consideration for the Bengals. And the way the board falls, it seems like they are going to have a good shot at getting their top candidate at the position. Moving on to number 6. So Detroit had the Saints pick. We're at number 2, then traded back to 6 with Tampa Bay for a big haul. I have them going with Dallas Danker of Florida State. He's a zone cover corner, which perfectly fits what they're doing there. Fills a need, had a perfect combine, perfect cover score, and then has 4.32 speed at the combine. So just very fast, great technique, fits what they're doing. I could absolutely see him being the top corner taken, and could see him going and having a great career with the Lions after being taken at number 6. At number 7 for Indianapolis, I have them going quarterback and taking Michael Oliveros out of Kentucky. Colts just parted way with Gary Freitag after he finished his career as a scrambler. They just spent a 7th to bring in Gregory Taphorn as a veteran scrambler presence. I don't think Taphorn is the long-term answer, but it seems like they want to continue building on that scrambler theme, and there's a fantastic scrambler in Oliveros. This is another guy that I had pegged as a top talent last year, and then has a whole nother season to develop. So I think could be a phenomenal fit with the Colts and what they're trying to do. And particularly with the Colts moving up from 21 to 7 and spending next year's first to do so. If you're going to spend 2 high firsts, I mean, franchise quarterback has to be one of those that you would consider doing that for. So if Oliveros is there, I think it makes sense for them to take him and continue building around mobile quarterbacks. At number 8, I have New England taking Jarvis Morrow as the top edge rusher. Morrow would fit their speed scheme. Had the second best pass rushing score in the combine and had 4.36 speed at the combine. His pro day speed was like a 4.3 flat, just phenomenal speed off of the edge. And so maybe when they were originally at 8, this was going to be a quarterback pick, and then everyone moved up above them, but New England has held that spot. And I think Morrow is a hell of a consolation prize, the edge rusher out of UCLA. At number 9, now we have the New York Jets in here. I have them going with Donald Dingus of Bowling Green. Huge coup for Bowling Green, getting 2 players in the top 10. This might be a little high for Dingus, especially as the second cornerback taken. And again, might be going too much on name recognition here. But A, it's a media mock draft, and we love the big names. But B, also, I don't think the Jets are going to find a better fit for their secondary. They seem to run a zone scheme, and they love their ball hawk archetypes. So Dingus is perfectly placed with great hands and his 9.5 cover score. I think could easily work himself into the rotation. The Jets' current CB2 is a 70 overall, age 28. So even if Dingus is not at that level yet, again, nickel back and then working him into the rotation as he improves, just really seems like the perfect fit for what the Jets are doing with that secondary. And in a draft that has gotten a lot of attention at quarterback, and rightly so, there's some really strong defensive secondary players. So I can see multiple going in the top 10. That does seem to be a fit for the talent that we're looking at. And then at number 10, we have the Dallas Cowboys, who, as mentioned, moved Jesse Knoll to the Jets to move into the top 10. I have them going with Marcus Dade out of Purdue. Again, maybe this was going to be a quarterback before everyone else leapfrogged them. Hard to say for sure. Hard to say what they'd be willing to do if they have another quarterback they like. But Dade is absolutely phenomenal, multi-purpose back. great, perfect outside run score at the combine, 9.5 catch score, one of the best at the entire combine, including receivers. And basically would take over for converted quarterback Vladimir Dawson, who has had some statistical success for the Cowboys, but I mean has a carry score of 36. So I gotta think that ball security is going to be an issue at some point. Whereas Dade can do absolutely everything. He's a 3-down back. He can catch. He can run. And for Dallas, who's moving on from their veteran quarterback, I think having a star in the backfield like that would really help to ease that transition. So that is my final mock draft of the top 10. Again, it is heavy on big names, so I'm sure it'll be completely different, maybe outside the quarterbacks, I'm not sure. But the QB order and then everything after that, I'm sure will be instantly blown apart when people have actual scouting results and they can take players they actually want. But certainly, if any of these names do not go in the top 10, keep an eye on them on draft day, because I'm certainly interested to know how far they fall and where they end up. And on that note, here are some of the big questions that I have going into this draft. So let's start with the obvious one. It seems like quarterbacks are going to go 1, 2, and 3, which would presumably be Romero, Kingery, and Savage in some order. What order is that going to be? Is Baltimore going to get the guy they want at 3, or are they going to get whoever's left? And then how far does Oliveros for? I'm expecting him to be the 4th quarterback off the board, but expectations, you know what they say about assumptions, so I don't know. So then the question is, how far does he fall? Is he the 4th quarterback taken? Is it a top 10? Is it a first round? Is it day 1? We'll find out. Other thing I'm really interested to know is, where do the top players from weaker position groups go? At least according to draft book and combine results, we see some slim pickings at tight end and outside linebacker. Now, of course, both of those positions have a lot of attributes that go into their overall, and there are few athletes who are good at all of them. So there might be something to that as far as the grade deflation goes, why we don't have as many top prospects. So we should consider that when you're thinking about, where these guys are going to go. But I feel like even with that factored in, it's not a particularly strong class for either of these positions, which can mean that those guys who are at the top might get elevated. If you have one candidate who really does stand out above the field, that can really push them up the draft board, because teams want to make sure to grab that guy. If he is the guy at the position and there's no one else that compares, that could push up their draft stock. So we're talking about Chantrell Garate, I'm not sure, Chantrell at outside linebacker, and then at tight end, Eric Braverman, who's a receiving tight end, and then possibly Robbie Bloom, who's a vertical threat. So 2 different archetypes there. But yeah, does the rest of those position classes not being what teams are looking for, does that boost those up? Are they already worthy of being taken in the first, or do they get pushed into that position? How high will they go? It's an interesting question. So something to keep an eye on. And then the last one, which especially applies to my mock draft, which I mentioned was very heavy on the big names. Which ones are going to be eclipsed by higher performing competitors? So at least as far as the combine was concerned, which again is kind of is my North Star right now when I'm making this mock. We've seen a lot of big names do well, and then we've seen a lot of lesser names or not as well-known names do even better. And that's, we've seen with Savage and Romero at the quarterback position, Harrison Rodriguez compared to Dade over at running back. I mentioned Bonifacio and Willie Parms as far as competing with Tony Sherman for the wide receiver 1 spot. A lot of guards competing with Mortensen for that kind of attention. Cantor, Howell, and Acosta, to name a few. Matt Hoskins, edge rusher, who had a perfect rushing the passer combine score compared to Jarvis Morrow, who also did phenomenally, but again, is this a 1A situation? Is the name going to put Morrow over the top? Will Hoskins surprise? We don't know. And then at cornerback, guys like Donald Dingus versus guys like Dallas Denker, who is also a zone cornerback with a perfect cover score. A couple other, again, great corners as well. Mostly man cover guys. Amari Stanley is also up there. So, is some of this competition from guys who really showed up at the combine going to push some of these bigger names down the draft board? And if they start to fall, does that mean they take a huge tumble and everyone else stays away, or is someone going to jump up and take their chance? Remains to be seen. But the draft is always unpredictable, so no way to know until it happens. And then a couple of questions which are also on my mind, but are just kind of generic, could apply to pretty much any NFL draft scenario. Which big slide is going to happen? Who's going to slide out of the first entirely and into the second round? Who's going to go all the way into day 2? And what big name is going to drop all the way into the second day? And as I said before, is someone going to make a move to get them, or they're just going to keep tumbling until someone stops their slide? And then finally, who pulls the biggest draft day trade? I've been very surprised, I'll be completely honest, with the number of moves pre-draft. Obviously, moving up to number 2 or number 3, taking a quarterback, I get that. But teams moving within the first round or moving from the third to the second, when no players have been taken off the board, is a bit surprising. I'm not a big draft day trader. I get very anxious. So I'm not surprised that... I guess I'm not surprised that some teams who want to make moves want to make them before the draft and not the day of. I do understand that. But it is still surprising to say, well, I think pick 50 is going to be better than pick 75. Well, sure, it's higher, so it's probably better, but without knowing how those first 49 picks are going to go, it seems like a lot to be making big moves like that and moving future capital to get in a certain position when you don't know who's going to be there. But teams have done that, and then I'm sure that someone day of is going to do something wild and shocking, moving it up in the first, moving back into the first, moving up to grab a big name to stop a fall. There's going to be at least one. So who pulls it and who they pull it for will certainly be a topic of conversation for next week. So with our upcoming episodes next week, it's going to be all about draft in the same way this way was, except instead of preview, we're going to be reviewing now. I can't promise full draft grades with that kind of turnaround, but we will definitely be discussing the draft in detail. Beginning of September, I am off for the long weekend. There will be no episode on September 2nd. And then starting with September 9th, we'll begin our division preview series. So we'll continue to cover trades and free agency. UDFAs will be covered as well at that point. But then as we get into actual games, preseason games, I'm not going to be focusing as much on the games, at least in my traditional format. But we'll be talking about looking at division previews, looking at who we think is going to move up and down with all the trades and moves that people have made with the way the draft went, who we think is on the way up and might surprise. Hoping to do a couple of divisions at a time, and then have a division preview series weekly that runs through the preseason and gets us set up for week 1 when the games count and we can finally start the 2026 season in earnest. So that is what we have coming up in the next couple of weeks. But that is everything I have for this edition of the SimNFL show. Thank you so much for stopping by and listening. And as I say to all users in all of our sims, good luck and have fun.